Right now, while you're asleep, there's a little meter running in the dark. It doesn't make a sound, it doesn't send you a text, it just ticks. And if you carry the average credit card balance in this country, that meter pulls about $3.84 out of your future every single night before your alarm even goes off. $3.84. It's not a typo. And it's not a scam email. That's just math doing what math does while you're not looking. You didn't sign up for a nightly withdrawal. But if you're carrying a balance, you've got one anyway. Tonight it'll run again, and tomorrow night. And the strangest part, almost nobody who's paying it can actually see it happen. Here's the thing about that nightly drip, it is quiet by design. You get one statement a month, one number, one due date. So the whole machine looks monthly. But that's not how the engine actually runs. Underneath that tidy monthly bill, your balance is being charged interest day by day by day, and each day's charge gets added to the pile. So tomorrow's charge is a hair bigger. It's not a monthly bite, it's a slow nightly drip. And because you only ever see the monthly summary, the drip is invisible. You feel the lump sum once a month and you think, oh, interest, and you move on. You never watch the actual leak. So today I want to do something simple. I want to turn the lights on in that dark room and show you the meter, where it came from, exactly how it ticks, what the real numbers are, and the one switch, a free switch that's been sitting there for over 60 years, that turns the whole thing off. I'm Slime Johnson. Let's go look at the meter. Part 1. Let's start with something that's going to surprise you because it flips the whole villain story on its head. The off switch for this drip is not new and it's not a secret. It's about as old as the modern credit card itself. Back in 1958, a bank in Fresno, California, mailed out the first true revolving credit card and they rolled it across the state the next year. And right there from the very beginning, it came with something called a grace period, roughly 25 days where if you paid what you owed in full, you were charged exactly zero interest, not reduced interest. Zero. The free off switch was built into the machine on day one. Then decades later, the rules got even more protective. After the 2008 mess, Congress passed a Credit Card Reform Act in 2009, and it locked in some real guardrails. Your bill has to show up at least 21 days before it's due, so you actually have time to pay. And if a grace period is offered, it has to be at least 21 days. The law also tightened up how your payments get applied. Anything you pay above the minimum has to go to your highest interest balance first. So here's the contrarian setup I want you sitting with. The story you've been told is that the card companies hid a trap in the fine print. But the off switch isn't hidden. It's been bolted to the front of this thing since 1958 and the law reinforced it in 2009. The drip isn't running because somebody buried the switch. It's running because almost nobody knows the switch is there or how it actually works. So let's go learn how it works. Part 2 now, let's put real numbers on the table because vague feelings about debt don't fix anything. Two numbers run this entire video. Number one, the rate. According to the most recent data from the Federal Reserve, the people who actually track this, the average interest rate across all credit card accounts is 21%. And for the accounts that are actually carrying a balance, the ones getting charged, the average is 21.5%. That's the rate. Number two, the balance. The average credit card balance per cardholder sits right around $6,500. Now, take that balance and run it at that rate and divide it out across a year and you get the headline. About $3.84 a night, roughly $115 a month, just in interest, not paying anything down, just renting the money. Now I have to be straight with you because being straight with you is the entire point of this channel. That average balance blends together two very different kinds of people. It includes folks who pay in full every month and owe zero in interest. And it includes folks who carry a balance and get hit hard. So that $384 a night is not a tax on everybody. It's what it costs you specifically if you're carrying that average balance. If you pay in full, your drip is zero, and we'll get to exactly why in it. But if you're carrying a balance, and tens of millions of people are, then that nightly number is your number. And it's quietly working against you every night you don't deal with it. By the way, before we go further, I built a free debt payoff cheat sheet for exactly this situation. The simple one-page version of everything we're covering. The link's down below. Grab it, it's free. Okay, back to the meter because now I want to show you the gears. Part 3, here's how the drip actually works under the hood. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your card doesn't think in months, it thinks in days. It takes that annual rate and divides it by 365. Some cards use 360 to get what's called a daily rate, a tiny little number. Then, at the end of every single day, it multiplies that tiny number by exactly how much you owe that day. That's your interest for the night. That's the drip. And here's the part that makes it sneaky. That night's interest gets added onto your balance. So the next night, the card isn't charging you interest on what you originally borrowed. It's charging interest on your balance plus last night's interest. You're now paying interest on interest. That's compounding, and on a carried balance, it runs against you every night, quietly, automatically while you sleep. Now layer one more thing on top because this is where people get genuinely hurt. In year one of carrying a balance at 21.5%, if you're only making the minimum payment, a huge chunk of that payment is just covering the interest that already piled up. Barely any of it touches what you actually owe. That's not a glitch. That's just how the minimum is designed. The interest gets paid first, the principal barely moves, and the meter keeps right on dripping the next night on a balance that hardly went down. That's how a balance that feels small somehow follows you around for years. The drip is small. But it never ever stops unless you flip the switch. Part 4, so let's flip it. Here's the single most important sentence in this whole video. If you pay your full statement balance by the due date, the interest never starts. Zero, not a little less. Zero. That grace period we talked about from 1958, that's it doing its job. Pay in full, and the drip never even turns on. That's the off switch. But, and you have to hear this clearly, the off switch is fragile. The moment you don't pay in full, the moment you leave even a little behind and start carrying a balance, you lose the grace period. And it gets worse than just interest on the leftover. Once you lose that grace, the card starts charging you interest on brand new purchases too. From the second you swipe, not from the due date, immediately. So now the milk and the gas you bought this morning are also dripping interest tonight. That's the twist almost nobody understands. The switch isn't pay most of it, it's pay all of it, or the meter runs on everything. So what do you actually do if you're already carrying a balance and the drip is already running? You stop the bleeding, then you pick a payoff method. There are two real ones. One, you attack your highest interest balance first while paying minimums on the rest. That's the one that saves you the most money on paper because you're killing the fastest drip first. Two, you pay off your smallest balance first, get the win, then roll that payment onto the next one. And here's something that surprised me with real research behind it. A study published in a major marketing journal looked at thousands of people in actual debt programs, and the people who knocked out small balances first, who closed accounts and got those early wins, were measurably more likely to actually climb all the way out. Not because the math was better, the math says go highest rate first, but because finishing things keeps humans in the game. So the honest answer is the best method is the one you'll actually finish. Part 5. So here's my honest take. The big short side of my brain wants to tell you the card companies are the villains, that they engineer this little nightly thief to rob you in your sleep. And look, they are absolutely fine with you carrying a balance forever. That's the business. But the grounded truth is more useful than outrage. So let me give it to you straight. This isn't a hidden trap. It's a known switch that most people were just never taught to flip. The interest drip is real, it's nightly, it compounds, and on a carried balance, it genuinely works against you. But it has an off switch that's been free and built in since 1958, and the law strengthened it in 2009. So here's what I'd actually do in plain order. First, if you can possibly pay the full statement balance, not the minimum, the full statement balance, you do that, and the drip never starts. Done. That's the whole game for most months. Second, if you're already carrying a balance, you stop adding new purchases to that card today because remember, once grace is gone, every swipe starts dripping immediately. Third, you pick a payoff plan and you finish it. Highest rate first to save the most money, or smallest balance first if you need the wins to stay motivated. Either one beats the thing most people do, which is nothing because they can't see the leak. That's the real edge here. Not a secret, not a hack. Just seeing the meter clearly and knowing the switch is right there. $3.84 a night sounds tiny. That's exactly why it works. Small enough to ignore every night for years. The win isn't being smarter than the bank. It's just refusing to leave the meter running when you don't have to. So let's bring it home. There's a quiet lit meter that runs on a carried balance every night. Roughly $3.84 a night, about $115 a month. If you're carrying that average balance of around $6,500 at today's average rate, it runs because the card charges interest daily, compounds it nightly, and only shows you a tidy monthly bill, so you never watch the leak. And the whole thing has a free off switch that's been there since 1958. Pay the full statement balance, and the drip never starts. Carry a balance, and it runs on everything until you hit zero. Here's your move. Go grab the free debt payoff cheat sheet linked below. It lays out the off switch and both payoff methods on one page, so you can see your own meter and shut it off. That one's on me. And if you want the full system, the step-by-step plan that actually walks you out, balance by balance, with the order mapped out for you. That's the Slime Debt Killer $14, also linked below. But start with the free sheet, seriously. Turn the lights on in that dark room, look at the meter, and flip the switch. Because this was never about being a genius with money. It was about being able to see what's already happening to you and deciding it stops tonight. Regular people, real wealth, no gatekeeping.